Okay, Trent, here's a weird question for you. If you had to pick any country in the world to receive medical attention in after getting bit by a venomous snake, which country would that be?
There's only one country that comes to mind, and that is Australia.
Good choice. Welcome to Global Guardian Studio Sessions. I'm Mario Dakoa.
I'm Trent Underwood, and thank you for tuning in to another Global Guardians podcast episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review so that you can stay up to date on all of our latest and upcoming episodes.
Let's get in it.
Yes.
Australia. That's that question up front, kind of weird, but there's a reason for that. Okay.
There definitely is.
We know Australia is home to some of the most toxic snakes in the world, some of the most toxic creatures in the world. And this studio sessions is all about our Australian productions in the past and somewhat recent ones as well.
Yep.
It's kind of become a home away from home, right?
It is. Like many of the other places we've been to, now that we've gone a few times, it feels very familiar. I would say another familiar place is Costa Rica. We talk about that one a lot. And it's a home away from home, as you say. So a great second place.
So as usual, when we talk about productions, we're going to review our highlights in these countries filming, whether that's the good, the bad, the ugly, some of the goals when we go to these countries, like the specific topics that we're filming. And of course, the people involved, right? We meet a lot of fantastic people in Australia. Once again, home away from home. We've got tons of friends there now.
Yeah, loaded up with a lot of people we met.
So let's start off with some timeline facts, because I've been to Australia 3 times so far. You twice.
Yep.
And I could say this, since I can remember when I was a little kid watching Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Hunter, in the early 90s, Australia was my dream destination. One day, I remember drawing a map of Australia and saying, one day I'm going to visit this place. And I did.
Yeah, I mean, very similar for me. I hadn't seen a whole lot of Steve Irwin. I didn't have Animal Planet or cable until like quite a little bit later on because my parents didn't want to buy cable yet. But when we finally did, and I started seeing Australia and seeing what it had to offer and the size and the different landscapes that you can get from north to south, the cities, I'm like, I eventually want to go to Australia one day. And it seems really far for someone who, like, I grew up in Ohio, grew up in Florida. It's on the same line, and it is far. I mean, it is far. And to know that you have to first get to like California, LA is kind of your launch hub, and then to cross the entire ocean to get there, it's like, might as well be going to Mars. When you're a young kid, that's what it feels like. Yeah,
I agree. I think Australia has that allure to a lot of people, as they know it's really far away, and the logistics to get there often deters people. But as we've mentioned, we've been lucky enough to go there several times, and I want to review some stats, some timeline. So the first time Brave Wilderness ever went to Australia was in 2017, November of 2017. And that was before you were part of the team. So it's just Mark, Coyote, and I. And we were there for 22 days. The second time we went to Australia, because after the first time, I was like, how can I convince Brave Wilderness to go back to Australia?
Yep.
So, of course, after that first trip to Australia, I was hooked, and I was like, I got to convince Brave Wilderness to go back to Australia. So at this point, in 2019, you were part of the team, and we went to Australia for
Animal Planet. And that was only my second international trip. The first one had been to Japan. And the time span was, I started in about August, went to Japan, September, October. So it was about just around over 6 months from the time I started that it was like, boom, we're going to Japan. And now we're pulling off the biggest trip I had ever done, period. Yeah. Both to distance, time, and the amount of equipment. So I was in charge of all the equipment for that trip. And there was a lot of things that we needed. We had multiple camera operators, we had sound guys, we needed backup stuff. None of us had really done a trip to this magnitude because it was for television. There was a lot riding on it, and we learned a lot. This trip was important in where we're at now with things, both with travel and gear and filming, because it kind of set the stage early on for what it's going to look like for any other future trip of this magnitude or distance.
Sure. Yeah. And as I mentioned, that's the second time that Brave Wilderness has gone to Australia, my second trip. And the total time spent in Australia in that trip was 37 days.
Yep.
That was juggernaut.
It was. I mean, I remember coming back and thinking I was pretty much Australian at that point. And I was like, wow, this is my first time to the US. I remember touching down back in LA and I was like, this feels weird. Like I've never been that out of the US like that. And you kind of, because of the time difference, which is nearly a day, you're waking up while everyone back home is going to bed. You start to not really have as much communication with back home, only your significant other or your loved ones. But normal friends that you'd be messaging or talking to, they're just kind of living through your stories on Instagram because you can't really have much of a, it's going great type conversation. That's about it because of the time difference.
It's almost like we are in a different world.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And then finally, our most recent Australia trip was in late March into April of 2023. And we were there for 33 days.
Yeah.
Which brings me to these cool stats that I hope are accurate. The total amount of time that I have spent in Australia has been 92 days, which is equivalent to 3 months. Not in a row, right? But between these 3 trips. For you, Trent, that's 70 days, 2 months, which is equal to 2 months and 10 days.
That's pretty impressive when you add them all up like that.
Yeah. So I would say besides Costa Rica, Australia is the one country we have spent the most amount of time in physically.
Yeah. And when you see it laid out, it really puts into perspective the time that we spent.
Yeah. And so far, we have produced 5% of our content that is on the Brave Wilderness YouTube channel is from Australia. 5%. That's pretty significant.
It is, yeah.
I would say. Yeah. So, Australia, we had to at some point talk about Australia and once again, the wonderful people there. And of course, the animals that draw us to that country. And in 2023, we revisited Australia because we wanted to, revisit some of those episodes we made for Animal Planet because those episodes lived on the Animal Planet network. And let's face it, a lot of our YouTube audience never saw those episodes because once they're released, they disappear. So it's like, cool, let's go back. Let's redo some of these episodes, but for the Brave Wilderness YouTube audience.
Yep. Which was really cool because we had already kind of, figured that recipe out. And so it was like, we know exactly the park. We know the animals. We know the rivers that we need to go to. And our fixers were the same fixers that we used on Animal Planet. So it was fairly easy to do the pre-production because we were only adding a new place, like one new place that we hadn't already been to. But these guys live there and operate in this area all the time, the Cape York area. So
it became very familiar for us to go this third time. It was like, we kind of knew the ropes. But as you mentioned, the biggest goal, at least in our books, was to visit the Cape York Peninsula. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time visiting Cape York. And we'll get into it a little later. But let's talk about the people involved, Trent. Mm-hmm. Let's kind of list out some of our main Aussie peeps that help make all the trips happen.
The Australian Wildlife Encounters guys, Max and Lockie, they know where to find every animal and every species that you can think of on this continent.
Yep.
And they are the go-to. So not just us, but when they do tours for people. Like if you're just a one person, you want to go see all these animals, these are the people you call, and they will take you to all of these locations to find those lifers, as a lot of herpers would call them. And from pre-production to planning to PDFs and documents, they're very professional and like how they did everything. And you guys had worked with them the first time.
Yes.
And we worked with them the second time and the third time, and we're getting ready to work with them again in Asia.
In a few weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't say anything better about Australian Wildlife Encounters. I mean, they're awesome. They are tour outfitters that not only do stuff in Australia, but in other parts of the world like Southeast Asia, as they will be doing for us. They're going to be essentially they're guiding our trip to Komodo, our first
Right.
time going to the Komodo Islands and that part of the world. Super cool. I remember this distinctly. In 2017, while we were pre-producing for the first Australia trip, Coyote and Mark were like, "Hey, Mario, can you find some Australian experts that are going to take us out and find these species?" So I started from scratch, zero, right? And I remember somewhere on social media, I saw a picture from either Max or Lockie of some Aussie animal. And I'm like, I admired it for the photography because they are photographers at heart, which is great. That's why they do so well with tours. They know what cinematographers and photographers want to get. And I remember I was like, well, these guys look cool. Let me just send an email. And they responded immediately. And within like a day or two, I was on a call with Max on WhatsApp. I was at my buddy Tim's place, Tim Bruss, getting ready to go out to look for salamanders. And I remember just talking to Max, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm talking to someone in Australia. This is really going to happen. Like, I'm going to make it there. And super cool, organized everything, got off the phone. I told my buddy Tim, I was like, yeah, I'm going to Australia. And he was super jealous. But anyways, it just goes to show you, started from scratch. Now they are like our go-to.
Yep, and lifelong friends too. I mean, we're always excited to just see them, regardless of production. It's just, we know that production, when you're on it for a long time, you become family. So you've got a vibe with all these people that you're working with, and it's always a fun time. Jokes, laughter, and they're on the same level as us. So it's always a great time working with them.
Too easy, as they say.
Yep.
Followed by Australia Reptile Park.
Yeah,
that's
Billy.
a organization that we have filmed several times in. And let's talk a little bit about Billy.
Billy Collette, man, this guy has one of the craziest jobs in the world. Just like our buddy Carl down in Florida, this man is milking snakes every single day, putting his life on the line every single day to ensure that venom is extracted and sent off to be able to be made into anti-venom to save other lives.
Yeah.
And, we had done some snake milking, with Carl down in Florida before having done this. But these snakes are big in Australia. They're big, they're aggressive. They're a lot more harder to manage because of their size, kind of like a king cobra size.
Yes. 7-8 foot snakes.
Exactly. And, it's a very small room, like we're all in there with our camera crew and everything. And seeing Billy operate in that environment and be calm and collected, and even in one of the snakes in the episode came up and kind of struck at him and came very close to his face, and he was chill. It's just part of the job. But to realize, like, man, if that snake bites you in the face, it's a very bad day. But man, this guy's super cool, and it was a pleasure working with him. I mean, everyone at Australian Reptile Park is great, but Billy is on top of the list for one of the best people we've met there.
Heck yeah. Yeah, they always welcome us with open arms. I mean, we go there and they're like, "What do you guys want to film?" I will state this: Australian Reptile Park is the sole provider of venom for anti-venom creation in Australia.
Which is pretty wild to think due to the size of the continent, and that's the only one.
Yeah. Big continent, but not big in population.
Exactly.
We've learned that.
Yeah, a lot of land.
All right, moving on. Aussie Ark. The Aussie Ark is kind of like a branch of Australian Reptile Park, somewhat associated, but super cool place where they have a population of Tasmanian devils that they are breeding as kind of like a genetic bank to ensure the safety of the population, because in the native Tasmanian devils have a disease rampant in the population. It's called the devil facial tumor disease, and unfortunately wiped out a large population in Tasmania. So they brought Tasmanian devils to the mainland, and here at the Aussie Ark, they're breeding them to just kind of ensure that genetic diversity.
Yeah. Yep. Which is really cool because it's a pretty unique facility, kind of up in the mountains a little bit, and it mimics a lot of the terrain that they have there in Tasmania, and they're thriving, doing really good.
Yeah.
And I mean, that whole team there is well-rounded, well put together, and Max and Lockie both used to work there, spent a lot of time there, and they may go back and forth still, but a lot of their upbringing and skills were acquired at that location.
In 2019, we worked with them at Aussie Ark. But then when we went back in 2023, we worked with Kelly Davis.
Yep.
So she was there to help us. But once again, they always welcoming. Let's see. Another person we met on this trip for the first time was Leela, a snakebite survivor. Trent briefly mentioned how we got in contact with Leela.
Yeah, well, in pre-production, we had reached out to Max Lockie and said, hey, is there anybody that you know that has been bitten by a snake? Because it would be really cool with the snake milking episodes and everything that we're doing to connect a survivor of one of these. And I believe they had put some feelers out on some Facebook posts and some Facebook groups to see if there was anyone in the area. And Leela had responded. And we had a phone call, or actually a Zoom call with her. And it was one of the coolest Zoom calls ever because, she's an older lady, I think in her 70s,
I think,
I think 70s. And she was so fluid and told us everything in extreme detail. I just remember it was like an hour-long call, and me and you were both smiling the whole time. Like, this is an amazing story that we have to tell.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a simple like, hey, I survived a snake bite, I went and got anti-venom. No, there was like, she died. She died in the ambulance due to basically hospital neglect.
Yeah.
And
due to non-administration of antivenom.
Exactly. And yeah, so we were able to sit down with her and have a really in-depth conversation. And it's kind of a different episode than we would normally do. It's more of an interview and some B-roll. And we eventually showed her a tiger snake that was a snake likely used for the anti-venom to save her life. Mm-hmm. And she was up close and personal with that. And we asked her, of course, beforehand if that was all good. And she was just a trooper. And
cool.
it was really cool to have that moment and be like on the phone call with her and then on the other side of the world sitting in front of her, realizing the terrifying moments that she went through when she was younger and was going through the snake bite.
Yeah. Super cool. Another kind of friend for life. These episodes that we're talking about, they are already up on YouTube. So we'll put links in the description so you guys could check these out. Moving on to Cape York. We worked with our good friend Ryan Hart, who is also associated with the Australian Wildlife Encounters, his girlfriend Seski, and of course we met their dog, Kevin the dog.
Kevin the dog.
He's famous, Kevin. It's like this little French
bulldog
mix or something like that. So this little, he's Kevin the dog.
Yeah, he was with us all the time in the trucks and everywhere.
And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to Emergency Survival Solutions, Jordan and their team. Anytime we go to Australia, they reach out to us. They give us snake bite kits and first aid kits. That's what they make. And we did feature some of their snake bite kits in the interview episode. Yep. Yeah. So those are the main people involved. We, of course, have many, many other friends throughout the country. But before we get into the next part of pre-production, let's answer that question that I asked you earlier. You said Australia as a place. If you were to pick a place to be bitten by a venomous snake and get care at, you said Australia.
Yeah, well,
so why?
There's a couple reasons. I would say the first one is that you can wrap your arm. So you're using a compression bandage, which is in that snake kit that Emergency Survival Solutions dishes out. And what that effectively does is delay the venom from traveling further up to your vital organs. So you effectively have hours and hours and hours of time to be able to get treatment. So that's the first part. And the second one is that it's free. Anti-venom is free. Here in America, it is very expensive, and you don't know how much of it you're going to need. You don't know if you're going to be allergic to it, so you can have all these different reactions at the hospital that just make that bill go higher and higher and higher. So those two things alone, you have that ability to delay the time so that you can get to emergency within a good window, and it is free.
Yeah, excellent. Yep, 100%. So this was a theme that we discussed many times throughout our Australia trip, this last one, since we did the milking of the snakes to extract the venom, and also because, well, we're out looking for these venomous snakes in the wild, and Max and Lockie are always kind of instilling the safety aspect of things. They're showing us what to do if we're bitten, and how to put a compression bandage and such. And you're right. They themselves said, even though Australia is home to the most toxic snakes in the world, the top 10, if you're going to get bitten by a venomous snake anywhere in the world, Australia is the place to be. because of those factors, high quality free antivenom, and the fact that you can do first aid on that bite to get yourself some time before symptoms kicked in to get to the hospital.
Now, why is it that you can use a compression bandage compared to, say, a Fer-de-Lance in Costa Rica where you do not want to use a compression bandage?
Fantastic question, because anywhere here in the Americas, you're not using a compression bandage. In fact, the only first aid you can do for a venomous snake bite in the Americas is kind of keep yourself immobilized and get to the hospital. And the reason for that is because of the venom composition. All the snakes in Australia are neurotoxic, primarily neurotoxic, meaning it affects your nervous system, which is bad. Neurotoxins tend to be very fast acting. Eventually, it's going to shut you down and shut your heart, and no good. The snakes in the Americas, most of them are primarily hemotoxic, meaning it affects your blood, your tissue, and essentially it destroys tissue. So if you compress, say, your hand or your arm where you're bitten by, let's say, an eastern diamondback rattlesnake, you're now localizing that venom into that arm, and now that destruction, that tissue destruction, is going to go rampant in that specified area. And unfortunately, it usually leads to like amputations.
Yep.
So it's never suggested to do a compression on snake bites here in the Americas. And that is why, despite the venomous, highly toxic snakes in Australia, that's the spot to be bitten by if you're unlucky. But let's go a step back. Statistically, snake bites in Australia, like in terms of resulting in death, are very rare nowadays, right? I forget the statistics, but it's only a handful, not even a handful every year that unfortunately die from venomous snake bites out of thousands of bites that occur. Mm-hmm. And that's the same case here in the U.S. In the U.S., I think it's average 10,000 snake bites a year. And out of those, maybe 1 or 2 fatalities. So good antivenom, good medical care, and you should be set.
Mm-hmm. And you also can use compression bandages in places like Africa.
You can for certain snakes.
For certain snakes,
You've got to know your snakes, because over there are, let's just put it this way. There are snakes out there that have both neurotoxic and hemotoxic properties, but you've got to know your snakes. Yeah. That's why Australia, like I said, is when we go there and we're looking for these deadly snakes, we're not being cocky, that's for sure. But at least I know that I've got that first aid as the first response to a bite. If the worst were to happen.
Well, and we always make sure to know where the medical facilities are when we're filming as well, to be like, okay, well, if someone were to get bit, there's the compression bandage, and then what's the first place we're going for first aid or ultimate emergency medical services.
Yeah, absolutely. And, mentioning Australia too, I think for most people, they associate Australia with deadly animals. And that's even like spiders, sharks, the crocodiles and such.
It's a meme on TikTok and Instagram. People are like, nah, I'm not going to go to Australia.
But I will say this, safest place you can go, because once again of, what we're just mentioning, but also too, a lot of these animals are urban animals.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into it. You can find them in the cities.
Yeah. In your pool, in your backyard.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Usually we talk a little bit about pre-production, how we get ready for a trip. And I'm specifically talking about the 2023 trip to Australia that we could kind of focus on since it was the most recent. But for this trip, I would say pre-production's easy.
Yeah, because we had done it for Animal Planet. A lot of the stuff that we were doing, we were staying in the same areas, very close to the same hotels or Airbnbs. And I think we stayed actually in 1 or 2 places that we had stayed during Animal Planet.
Yeah, we did.
So, it was fairly easy in that we knew the general roadmap. But one thing that we really did, you and I, on this trip was dive into like street level. We would go in like, okay, well, it's going to take us this amount of time to get here and here. These are the restaurants we're going to want to hit. This is a good breakfast spot. And we had kind of our entire itinerary built out. So we had already like driven the roads and eaten at the restaurants in our mind. That way, when we got there, it was just like plug and play, go, 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 because you're very jet lagged due to that nearly day time difference. You're a day ahead over there by nearly 12 hours. And you're fighting mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion. So having as good of a pre-production plan as you can possibly have to be like, so that you can just look at it and say, all right, this is where we need to be next. Because you don't want to have to do too much thinking when you're in those early stages of arriving, because you're just so zapped. You're just so out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a good grasp on this trip, and especially because once again we're working with Australian Wildlife Encounters, and they're hooking it up, even from getting there to like picking us up at the airport. Here's your vehicle, guys. Go rest for the day because we know you're jet lagged. We always have some acclimation days for these trips, and then we're off. One thing I do want to note from the, like I said, street level, you and I were doing a lot of driving this trip, so we had to train ourselves. As soon as we got there, you drove first, I remember, in Sydney.
Yeah, it was like chaos coming off the plane. I'm just like...
Yeah, you had to train yourself to drive on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
And mentally, that takes time. Whenever we were driving those first, I would say the first week, there was two drivers, right? There's the person actually physically driving, and then there's the navigator that is confirming everything. I would remember, I'd be like, all right, Trent, I'm making a left turn.
Yeah.
Is this okay?
Am I good? Yep. I mean, it was always sketchy coming up to those first couple roundabouts because just your body wants to take it right, but you're like, oh, nope, can't do that. We're going to cause a big crash, and hope you don't want to do that.
Yeah. The Aussies love their roundabouts.
Yeah.
So I remember that was just a, fun part of production is those little details. And you and I got really good. We got very comfortable at a certain point. I mean, something as simple as walking to the vehicle, if you're the driver, you're going to likely go on the wrong side to try to get in and be like, oh, wait, I have to go around. So that's something that you have to get used to. But I'd say this, once you're used to that, it feels more natural to drive in that manner than here in the US.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree. Yeah, I don't know why necessarily that is, but it does feel better.
Yeah, something weird about the brain and which hemisphere of the brain we use for, I don't know, navigating or something.
Yeah.
So interesting. All right, let's move on to our standout moments. So this is the part of the episode where we're going to go through, at least for Australia, the different locations we're at, and just pick some of our favorite moments, And the first is New South Wales region, which includes Sydney as well, I would say.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. What was some standout moments?
Well, we started in Terrigal, but I wouldn't say there was too many standout moments there because that's a fairly, simple beach town, city. We did a lot of mall shopping, a lot of eating out at restaurants. We even worked out there. We even got a temporary 1-week gym membership. So it wasn't a whole lot. Gotta keep fit. Yeah. And that's where we were doing Australian Wildlife Encounter, Australian Reptile Park was near there.
Yes. So we stayed there first for Australian Reptile Park. Yeah.
And then that's where we moved up to the Tazies.
Let's talk about Australian Reptile Park then. Yeah. So my favorite part of the Australian Reptile Park portion of the trip was getting to hang out with baby Komodo dragons.
Yeah. I mean, that idea in pre-production was that we would all three have our own unique experiences with an animal, and it was a day in the life of these different keepers that manage the different animals. Yeah. And so yours was a Komodo that you got to walk in, baby Komodo dragons. I was with the Sydney funnel web, and then Coyote was with the big Croc, what was that Croc's name?
Elvis.
Yeah, the big one that they have on display there in the front. And so we each got to have our own little adventure.
Yeah, which was pretty neat. That spider that you were milking, the Sydney funnel web, most toxic spider in the world.
Yep, and that's the one that could be found in a pool in the backyard. I was talking to somebody like, but we found these in our swimming pool growing up.
But Australian Reptile Park is the only place in the world that creates antivenom for this species, and you were helping with that process.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as difficult of a process as you might think, but you have the spider in a little container, and you use a little pipette, and as you kind of tease the spider, it'll secrete its venom, and then you suck it up, and then it goes off to be created into antivenom. So It's pretty cool, and the fangs on that sucker are pretty big. I mean, for a spider, you don't imagine a spider having fangs like this, but it's huge. I mean, you have to just watch the episode in order to see the milking.
That brings to a fact. One of my favorite facts about Sydney funneblowed spiders is the snake species in Australia all are elapids. They belong to the elapid family, which means elapids have small fixed fangs, usually in the front of the mouth. The funnel web spider has larger fangs than some of the snake species in Australia.
Which is probably what leads to people's terrification of going to Australia. I don't know if that was a word.
Terrification?
Made that up. Terrification.
Yeah. Apprehension.
Apprehension. Yeah, there we go.
But think about that. So I'm glad you brought up the fangs, because we heard a story of someone bit in on the toe and the fang went right through the nail.
Yeah.
With that person's toe. So funnel web spiders are no joke.
Powerful. Yeah.
Komodo dragon babies. I mean, basically, I got to pal around with these juvenile Komodo dragons that were born at the Australian Reptile Park. I think a few months before. Mm-hmm. So it's the first time I believe Komodo dragons were ever born in Australia was there at the park.
Yep.
So pretty neat. Moving on from Australian Reptile Park, we went north, right, to film at the Aussie Ark.
Yep, a few hours north. Yeah, the Aussie Ark, like I said earlier, it's up nestled in the mountains. We were kind of low in the valley is where we were staying in this small town. And that's where Coyote discovered there's like a wall of pamphlets. You've all seen them at gas stations or stores where it's like things to do in this area and restaurants and food. And he just pulled a couple of them out, and there was like a map of this old mine that was down the street, like this cool trail to an old mine. And it was calling out to beware of a stinging plant, a stinging nettle plant that kind of is all over the place here that can cause really, really bad reactions. And what is Coyote coming to us to do? We're not even finished putting the bags in the room. Yeah. And he comes running in and...
Well, as usual, Coyote's like, hey guys, here's a potential episode. Tomorrow on our day off, we got to go explore this park. And that's what we did. And, you and I had our cameras because we were like, cool, let's see if there's any snakes or anything cool to photograph. And immediately Coyote finds one of these plants. And he does a little test on his finger. And then, I'm not really paying too much attention to him because, sometimes how it is, we're just like, all right, let Coyote get his energy, like a little kid. You're kind of like, go run around, do your stuff. The adults could go look for animals and take pictures. Yeah. And he came up to us. He's like, look at my finger. And there was a huge, blister.
Yeah, like rash blister just started forming.
So immediately, both you and I were like, all right.
We got to film it.
We got to film the episode. So Coyote, don't touch the leaf anymore. Leave it alone. We're coming back tomorrow.
Yep.
And that's what we did. The next day, we went back to the park. I'd say it took us half an hour to an hour, and we filmed the entire episode. That episode now is on the YouTube channel. And what's it called?
That's the Devil's Toilet Paper.
Devil's Toilet Paper. And guess what? It turned out to be the most popular video we produced in Australia.
Yep.
22 million views.
22 million views. And it was, like you said, a very quick episode. It was an instantaneous. We were like, yep, we got to film it. It followed the same kind of formula as our typical Sting episodes, just swapping out an insect for a plant. And it was honestly a little bit easier because a plant doesn't fight back. It's not like squirming around in a net. Right. It's just lay it on and scratch it. And, I brought my double ultra macro lens and got some really cool macro photos that showed the basically like they look like fangs. They look like snake fangs and like with the, venom kind of coming out of them. So yeah, that kind of in that moment when we were like, what other green plants will scratch him up and create a reaction? And that will ultimately lead to Cape York later on in this discussion for the Gimpy plant.
Yeah, I mean, guys, you can thank this area that we're at for all the plant videos that you are seeing on the YouTube channel and future plant videos, because this opened up the world to stinging plants and toxic plants and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
opportunistic.
Yep. I mean, that happens a lot for us where we're just in an area exploring and an opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. So I think that was my favorite part of that trip or that portion. I think that was my favorite part of that portion of the trip was a true testament to us as a team, 3-person team, how we could become so opportunistic and pivot to be like, all right, we've got a few hours to come up with a narrative and film this because we weren't planning on it. And then we do it
Yep.
and it becomes a success.
Well, and we only had 2 days planned to go to the Aussie Ark. And the first, when we realized that we were going to film this, we said, well, let's go to the Aussie Ark and knock all of it out in one day rather than going for 2 days. And when you have that in mind, you're going to get up there and you're going to maybe attack a little bit harder with what you planned on doing. You're going to try to go for a little more B-roll, more story, make sure you have all the pieces and parts because it was about an hour drive up into the mountains. And it's a pretty involved process filming the Tazy. So we're like, let's get it knocked out in one day so that we can come down and film this. So what we were only supposed to be there for 2 days and we got 2 episodes out of it, one which pretty much covered the whole trip as far as its views. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Pretty amazing. Moving on from that area, we went to the Sunshine Coast.
Yes, beautiful.
And all I have one sentence here that says chill vibes.
Yeah, chill vibes. Yeah.
I mean, that's the Sunshine Coast. So, that's a little north of Brisbane, and that's where the Aussie guys live.
Yep.
Right? The Australian Wildlife Encounters.
What a place to live, too. I mean, it's like kind of their version of like maybe say West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale kind of beach town.
South Beach.
Yes.
Just chill vibes. And we stayed there for a few, I think like about a week.
About a week, yeah.
Maybe a little less a week because, we had to also have like our rest days on these massive trips. Although rest days generally become work days majority of time. We had to like incorporate travel time between these places because we actually did take a bunch of domestic flights within the country. But one of the goals during our Sunshine Coast portion was to film the interview with Leela, as you mentioned earlier, the snakebite survivor. So, of course, the goal of the Sunshine Coast was to film Leela, the snakebite survivor. Give me one thing you learned from her interview. What's something interesting that you took away from her interview?
Well, when we had first heard that she was bitten by the snake, we had assumed it was fairly recently. And it actually happened a long time ago when she was in her 20s. And she had a kid as well. And she had a farm and she was out on the farm taking care of the goats and was barefoot. A lot of people on farms might be running around barefoot. But this is a special area probably where you don't want to be barefoot. And she was simply just stepping up to the house and her foot was underneath the stairs and she felt a little pop on her foot. And she, heard something kind of scurry away. So she kind of knew in that moment that likely she got bit by something, not sure what it was. Later on, a herpetologist assumed it was likely a roughneck snake based on the bite. And it was a fairly quick reaction. She was starting to throw up and she had to grab her kid, run over to the neighbor to get assistance, get in the car, and then begin that journey to first aid, which ended up not being quite that fast, which led to her dying in an ambulance.
Yeah, and then being resuscitated.
Yeah.
What I take away from that story, it's a good story about the use of antivenom. She sought medical attention, but the first place she went to denied her of antivenom. The doctor was like, I don't know if you were bitten by a venomous snake or not. They did not test to see if she was. And then finally, when they tested, she was just going downhill and they had to race her to another hospital, at which point she did die on the way there and then resuscitated and finally received antivenom.
Yep.
So to me, when she was telling the story, she was kind of upset about that. Even all these years later, she was upset because she does have a long-lasting effect of the antivenom.
Neurological effects, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to explain just briefly what that is?
Yeah, she gets, she's kind of more frail and she gets tired very easily. Like her body gets exhausted quicker than a normal person would. I mean, through our interview, we knew we had a window of time. She specified in the beginning, like, hey, I'll probably like crash out basically around 11 or 12. We started around 10. So we knew we didn't want to push hard. We wanted to be comfortable, relaxed, cool. And we got to the end of the interview and she was like, yeah, guys, it was nice meeting you, but I got to go. I need to sleep. I need to shut down.
Fascinating how, I don't think a lot of people realize that venomous snake bites, especially neurotoxic snakes, have long-lasting neurological effects on their victims, on people, for example, whether it's heart problems or, as she said, it was very interesting. I remember she would always say, I don't have energy reserves. Remember that? Yep. She would say, meaning like she can't like sum up that extra boost of energy like a lot of people can. And remember, this happened out in the 70s. Yep. Like this happened a long time ago. So even to now, she has to deal with the fact that she has to like take naps at certain points of the day and just sometimes doesn't have enough energy. So fascinating.
Yeah.
Moving on in the Sunshine Coast, we did do a snake rescue. So Australian Wildlife Encounters, Max and Lockie, they are always on call. They go out and basically remove snakes from people's houses, businesses. They teach people how to properly move snakes if they need to. And they do a lot of education and rescue services. So we were lucky enough to go with Lockie on a snake call, and we relocated a eastern brown snake.
Which is a very deadly snake.
3rd in the world.
Yeah.
Crazy. 3rd or 2nd? I think it might be 2nd, eastern brown snake.
I think 2nd is probably right. We'll have to.
I should know this. I made these facts.
So let's see.
There's a big difference between 1, 2, and 3, in that if you're number 2,
dangerous in the world,
most toxic. Remember, danger and toxic don't go together.
Most toxic in the world. Our good old friend ChatGPT.
Well, the most toxic is the inland taipan.
Yeah.
Number 2 is eastern brown. I'm going to say it before you even say it. Eastern brown is the second most toxic.
There. Reasoning. Second most venomous.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was right.
Surpassed only by the inland taipan. So you were right on
I was
par.
second guessing myself. So the eastern brown snake is the second most toxic snake in the world. And they are urban snakes. They're all around the eastern coast, as their name implies, of Australia. So yeah, we got to catch one of those and relocate it. And then we took a plane to Darwin. Darwin. One of my favorite places as well. And I have that there on my notes.
Boy, Darwin is hot, man. It is hot. I remember, when Sunshine Coast is nice, cool, breezy, and we land in Darwin and it's just sticky and hot and 90 plus degrees.
It hits you.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
It reminds me of a August day in South Florida when I was out catching crocs or out in the field. Just humidity, hot, but I love it.
Yep.
That's where the animals thrive. That's where, at least in Darwin, is kind of the capital of the salty.
That's right.
And right now I'm holding a saltwater crocodile model that Trent made.
Yeah, 3D printed that out.
Pretty neat. I'll show this to the audience there.
Mario has recently gotten into painting models, and we're like, well, let's experiment. Let's work with some crocodiles, because crocodiles are, because of their coloration, they're going to be a little bit of a challenge to paint because of the different gradients and pieces and parts that you gotta work up.
It's gonna be a fun paint job for sure to do this crocodile. Now, you gave this to me this morning. You brought it in, and obviously our topic is Australia. So I was like, well, I'm gonna put this on the desk.
Yeah, completely unplanned too, but there it is.
There you go, a little decoration. Because when we went to Darwin, now Crocs are in the picture.
Big Crocs.
One thing I think a lot of people assume is when they think of Australia, they think crocodiles. But the crocodiles are restricted to only a certain portion of Australia. In fact, I would say a small percentage of Australia is within range of the saltwater crocodiles, the big boys.
Yep.
And Darwin being one of those spots where infamous for crocodiles.
Yeah.
So let's see. We get to Darwin, and there are some standout moments.
Yeah. Standout moments indeed.
Yeah. Let's see.
Why don't you start with your early walk around to try to find some animals? How did that go?
Okay. Well, of all trips, this was one of the heartbreaks I had for sure on this production. So, as usual, we wake up and we're like, hey, where are we going to go for brekkie? Well, luckily, if you are in Darwin, you go to this really cool little hip cafe right on the water that if you walk around the property, you will find a monitor lizard species, actually several monitor lizard species. The one species we were looking for was the Mitchell's water monitor, which is actually an endangered species. And yeah, just right along the walkway where people are just exercising, hanging out, you could find these tiny monitor lizards amongst the rocks. Super cool, right by the water. So were you with us that day?
No, that will lead to my moment. Yeah.
That's right. You weren't with
Our
us.
days went a little bit different, both bad.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
This will lead you into your story.
Yep.
I got a great little brekkie, and then Lockie was like, all right, Mario, let's just split up. You walk this way. I knew what to look for. And it's our day off. So I've got the 100-400, Sony 100-400 lens on a Sony a7R5 body. And I'm walking down kind of by the beach along the rocks. Super easy to walk. There's like nothing technical or difficult about it. I'm not running. I'm just hanging out. And I saw a few water monitors and took pictures, and I was super stoked. And then, I don't know, there was some little like curve that I had to take, and I stepped up onto a rock and slid down, and my camera was hanging on my left side with the lens pointed down. And that slip caused the lens to just drive straight into a rock, a big boulder. Bang! And I had no lens hood on it.
And no filter.
No filter.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that noise, my heart sank. And I kind of recovered very quickly. I look at the lens, and sure enough, dead center in the front element, there is a chip. Tiny chip. Well, not tiny, a big chip.
Yep.
Just in the lens.
Yep.
And I was like, oh shit. This is only half of the trip.
Yeah.
We've got the rest to go. This is my primary lens. And I freaked out.
Yep. I mean, we had the other 200-600, but it's not as sharp and not as easy to manage for a handheld. And yeah, I mean, I remember you came back, I was at the Airbnb, and you're like, dude, I freaking broke the lens, man. And I was like, what? Like, because you didn't describe like how bad it was. I thought like, did this thing go take a tumble down a hillside? Like, is the camera shot too? Like, what happened? And thankfully you were able to still use it as long as you were at a certain focal length.
Yeah. So what we did was I tested it out, and if I zoomed past 200, or if I zoomed past 100, I did not see any noticeable sign of that chip, which was great. Yep. So we used the lens the rest of the trip, but I was just disappointed in myself. It was a silly accident, and I think I was just more disappointed. Up until that point, I've been very careful with cameras. We both have been. Up until recently, both had some incidents, but I was disappointed. Luckily, we were able to continue using that lens. And it took me a few days to get over that. However, it also was taking you a few days to get over something else. So let's lead to why weren't you with us that morning eating breakfast?
Right. Well, let's rewind back to Sunshine Coast.
Yes.
It's morning. We're leaving Sunshine Coast. We're at the airport. And, it's time to get some brekkie because we got a long day. We got to fly to Darwin, got to get checked in, blah, 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 blah. And, I like a good breakfast. I like over easy eggs. I like to dip my bread in there, like the saucy egg feel. And, I thought nothing of it. I mean, I'd been eating over easy eggs all trip. I've eaten over easy eggs for years, no issues, right? So we get to Darwin, we've checked into our Airbnb, and we do a little walkabout around the property because it butts up to a golf course and a big park area. And we're walking around, and I just start to feel a little, I don't know, off. And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's the heat, maybe I'm tired, maybe that's a combo. And we were talking about, well, we're going to eat dinner, go out night herping, and go check out some places that we had been to during Animal Planet, see if there's any activity. Right. So we get out there and I start getting this feeling, the bubble gut is what I call it, where you start to just feel your stomach inflating and that something problematic is probably coming soon.
Oh boy.
And it was, I don't know, maybe 11 o'clock. And we're like, all right, well, we saw what we were going to saw, or we saw what we were going to see. Let's jump in the car and head back. Because the next day we were going to either start going out looking for crocodiles or take a day off. Or at minimum scout that area. So get in the car, and I told Lockie, I was like, can you roll down the window? And I just hung my head out the window, and I started just nice, slow breathing, because now my stomach was like I was pregnant.
Oh boy.
And I was like, I'm going to throw up.
A storm was approaching.
Yeah. And I couldn't figure out why. I was like, why do I feel so bad? I was like, I don't understand this. And we get back to the Airbnb. And remember, I was silent that whole drive home. I wasn't saying a word because I think if I would have said a word, I probably would have puked.
Let me tell you something. If Trent is quiet on a drive, something's up.
Yeah, something's going on.
If he's not joking around, if he's not saying some type of opinion or thought, something's up.
Yep. And so we get in, and I just kind of didn't even grab any gear or anything. I just beelined it straight for the bathroom, and threw up and threw up and threw up and threw up. And it was an all night thing. I was in the bathroom basically every 5 minutes, and I was like, I got food poisoning. And I couldn't, in the moment I wasn't like thinking clearly. And I'm like, where did this happen? I was like, it's usually about 24 hours before food poisoning to kind of kick in. And I was like, what have I eaten in the last 24 hours? I'm like, it can't be anything in Darwin. We haven't been here that long. And I'm like, those over easy eggs at the airport. That's got to be the only culprit, because it's, over easy eggs are on the line of cooked, undercooked, whatever. And man, it was, thankfully we had that buffer day in between before going to do saltwater Crocs on the Adelaide River, because I couldn't even hold down like a shot glass of water. I tried to get Gatorade. I had you guys go get me some Gatorade and some crackers and some like just anything little small. Pedialyte. I couldn't even keep the Pedialyte down. So I basically just laid in bed and waited for like every 10 minutes, and it would be like, all right, time to go to the bathroom. And I have never been so dehydrated, so drained, felt so miserable in that sense in my life. And, that's the day that I stayed back at the Airbnb. You guys went out. So you come back like, I broke the lens. I'm like, well, I can't stop going to the bathroom. So like life is just fantastic right now. And so we kept talking about what's the plan for tackling the saltwater Crocs on the Adelaide. So that is you get on a boat. It's extremely hot. You have a canopy over, but when that boat's not moving, the air is stagnant. It is 90 degrees. It is top tier humidity. And you're filming one of the deadliest animals in the water. This is not a place where you want to feel off. So we came up with the plan. It was like, okay, well, if I can't make it, then this is how we're going to shoot it, because it would just be you. Lockie would be there. He could help, with some GoPros. It would just be a much more contained, smaller shoot. And so I wake up and I'm like, I think I can do it. I was going to the bathroom far less. And I was able to hold down a little bit of that Pedialyte, but I was nowhere near hydrated. I brought a lot of waters and stuff with me. I had no food in like probably 36 hours. So like I'm hungry. And now we have to go into basically a hellish environment under the absolute worst bodily circumstances. And I just remember very little moments, because all I could think about was surviving on that boat. I was like, we have to get through the shoot, and I have to not throw up, because I can't hang over the edge of this boat, because there could be a massive freaking croc that comes up and takes your head clean off, and it would happen. They are very adamant, do not lean over the boat. So I'm like, can't throw up. I've got to, because your natural instinct is going to want to do that, and I have to keep from doing that. And I remember just sitting there. I'm like, I don't even know what the last thing people were saying was like. And, we got out and I had to do some drone shots, and we were on a little like picnic table, and I'm sitting there flying the drone, and I just kind of zoned out. I'm like, What am I filming again? Oh yeah, the river, following the shots, and it was a struggle, but I pushed through that day or through that trip. And I remember getting back in the car in the AC, and I was finally able to down some water, and we were going to go head off to lunch. And it just continued. Like I'm dead. I'm like ready to go back into my dark bedroom and call it a day.
Yeah.
And we, the Adelaide River in this location is far off into the boonies.
Kind of the country.
Country, yeah. And we got to go to this restaurant that's pretty rough,
Restaurant
shitty bar food. And, a lot of people there are rednecks, like some road crew, as they would call them, like the construction people out there working, like a lot of it's dirty. It's a very dirty place.
Kind of grimy.
Yeah, kind of grimy. And, we've got this lady who's been pounding beers. I mean, mind you, it's like 1:00 in the afternoon. It's a weekday. And, she sees us all sitting there, and she's just, "Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?" Comes over with this raspy smoker voice, chugging along on a probably Marlboro Red. Comes over and sits down by us and, "Hey, well, what are you guys doing? You guys catching crocodiles and stuff?" And so we got her on the left, and then we got our crocodile guys who are very talkative and very, and they're talking in their strong Australian accents. I'm just sitting there in the middle, like, I'm like, I am so done. I was like, the food is terrible. Like, this is not what I want to wash down my 36-hour experience with, is shitty bar food, and just hearing this in both ears. I'm like, I just wanted to just teleport out. Like, I'm done. I'm done. And that's when you came in for the savior of the day. So
yeah, I saw you panicking, dude. I was like, Trent's no good here. So I just straight up said, I was like, all right, we got to go back up footage now, guys. Yeah. I abruptly was like, we got to go.
Yep. That's the classic outline.
Got to go.
I mean, the footage does need backed up, but if we're ever like, okay, it's time to wrap it up. Well, the footage, man, I can't leave. We got to footage.
That's a secret.
Footage backup. If you hear that,
we got to go back up footage.
Yeah, we got to dip.
It means you're annoying us or something.
But
Trent, you were a trooper, dude.
Yeah, that was a struggle. Like I said, I'd never experienced food poisoning ever in my life, and I've gotten it since then one other time, but that time was exceptionally bad.
Yeah,
exceptionally bad.
Now you're a trooper. Being in another country, technically we're working. Being sick or impaired is not good, and the fact that you basically only had one full day to chill, and then you're back out in production. Yeah, that's intense. So you were a trooper, and finally, you started to get food back in you, and you recovered. But I do distinctly remember when we were determining, like, what did you eat? We all were like, well, no one else ate breakfast at the airport, at least at the spot that you ate at.
Yeah, right.
So we're like, it had to be the airport breakfast.
Yeah, and I was like, what was that plate? And I'm like, over easy eggs. So now I usually get my eggs over medium, just as a precaution, because I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, trooper. And I we will never wish that upon anyone, the food poisoning, especially on a trip.
Yeah.
Darwin. I mean, let's see, a cracked Sony lens, food poisoning, and then there's one more thing. This isn't such a big thing, but it kind of stands out to me, and that is on one of our days of scouting / just being like, all right, what else can we film? We went to go look for pygmy monitor lizards.
Yep.
So Australia they have like 30 plus species of monitor lizards, many of which are actually really small. They don't get that big. So this one species of monitor lizard, Varanus primordius, you flip rocks and there's this little beautiful tiny monitor lizard. So we're going to this location, and Coyote and I are like always competing to see who's going to catch something first. And we go to a spot, immediately I lift this rock and boom, there's this little monitor. I grab it. And it's just this cute little thing, like maybe 8 inches long.
Yeah, what could it do? And
so I instinctively, I put it in the palm of my hand, and then I cupped it with my other hand so that I'm not like actually restraining its neck. I do this with snakes and other animals. So I'm just like cupping it. And all of a sudden, this little sucker just latches on to my pinky, like the side of my pinky. I don't know how to describe it, but it was in my left hand? Yeah, my left hand. And just latches on to a little edge of my pinky, and it does not let go. And it is like excruciating pain. Yeah. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah. It's not a bad bite, meaning, I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's taking my finger off, but it just got me right at that little pressure point. And this thing is just latched on like a little bulldog. All of a sudden, this cute little monitor lizard is the devil.
Yep. And you're leaking.
And
you were
it's-
leaking.
And it's, a lot of people suspect monitor lizards have like anticoagulants in their saliva. And sure enough, my whole arm is like now being covered in blood. Lockie is laughing. I'm like, Lockie, take this thing off my finger. He's trying to help me pry its mouth open, but it's not letting go. And it's so tiny that you also don't want to hurt it. So I'm trying to be as delicate as possible. So at one point, I just put my hand down on the ground and we pour water on it. It's not letting go.
Yep.
And I'm just bleeding and bleeding. And finally, at some point, as I feel it backing away, it's tearing. I feel my little, like the flesh tearing.
Yeah.
It just lets go.
Yep.
And then I go to the car and you kind of clean it up. But my hand is shaking
Yeah.
because like it was painful and there's just so much blood. It's hard to describe how this little 8-inch monitor put me in such pain. And, it's going to lead to this story of my previous monitor bite. So I've been bitten by monitors in the past and other animals. I try hard not to intentionally ever be bitten by animals, but I've taken some bites. And I like to think that, I take it like a champ. But this little sucker, tears were forming in my eyes. And it was after the fact, by the way, that Lockie said to me, yeah, mate, these guys have notoriously strong bites. You don't want to get bit by them. That's
Like,
not
well,
like
great, thanks. A little late for that. Yeah.
That's not how Lockie sounds like, but pretty much he was like, yeah, mate, they hurt a lot. And I bring it up because the ironic part is it bit me in my left hand, my pinky. My left hand is the hand that I have received the worst animal bite to date. And that was from a water monitor lizard, Asian water monitor, when I was like 19 years old. When I was living at the Everglades Outpost Wildlife Sanctuary, this monitor escaped. And it was kind of, missing for a few days. And all of a sudden, one day I'm walking by the area and one of the guys was like, hey, there's the monitor lizard. Go catch it, Mario. And I'm good at catching lizards, so I catch it. I just jump on it and I've got my right hand on it and I got a good grip, but for whatever reason, I come in with my left hand and it turns and just grabs my entire hand in its mouth, minus my thumb. And instinctively, I just immediately yank my hand out. And what do you think happens?
Shredded you.
Monitors have serrated teeth, so I just cleanly sliced all my fingers almost to the bone with my pointer finger almost exposing the ligaments and tendons. Anyways, long story short is 30 stitches and 2 weeks of my hand in bandages was my worst monitor bite. But then this little sucker bites me in the same hand.
Fate. Yeah. Your stars aligned.
And guess what? We're about to go see the biggest monitor lizards in the world, the Komodo dragons.
That's right. So don't want to get bit by that.
No, let's just put it this way. That story, I've got a lot of respect for monitor lizards, including the little guys. Don't underestimate them.
Yeah.
That was Darwin.
Yeah.
And
we went to our final location after this.
Our final location.
Cape York.
From Darwin to Cape York. All right. Let's see.
Well, I'll give a little background on the Cape York quickly. So in our pre-production, we had talked with Ryan and Max and Lockie about wanting to go there because Ryan actually lives there and is in the process of building an eco lodge out there. And he was like, yeah, you guys got to come out here. You got to visit here. That's where the green tree pythons are at. And
let's just, Cape York is the northern point of the continent. Peninsula. And it is the only rainforest. Like proper rainforest in Australia.
And largely it's very remote. It takes quite a bit to get there, lots of flooding. There's a few airfields, but those are small planes and it's difficult as we learned. But you were going to be gone when I was going to have that phone call with those guys.
Yeah.
You were on a trip somewhere, I think
it
seeing
was
your family.
Costa Rica or something.
Yeah.
or-
And so I had the call with them, and I was like, guys, we need something in Cape York to go there, like because of the expense and the logistics to get there. We have to have something like guaranteed. And they're like, well, the green tree pythons are everywhere. You'll be able to get those with adults and juveniles, among many other lizards that are there, monitors as well. And we were like, okay, well, we can explore some of the beach areas and there was a lot of cool things. So fast forward to when we're on the trip and we're doing the stinging plant, the devil's toilet paper in the Aussie Arc area. Mm-hmm. We send all this information to Ryan, and we had looked up some other stinging plants in Australia, and we found there's a gimpy plant. And we send this to Ryan, and Ryan is like, well, fancy that. I have these all up and down my driveway in Cape York.
All over Cape York.
We're like, boom, headshot right there. Let's go. So we were already, heading to Cape York to knock out those things that we had talked about in pre-pro. And to get there, you can either drive along 11 to 12 hour, very rough road that has potential to be flooding. You might need help. So you got to know the people in the area if you get stuck. And there's saltwater crocodiles in this flooded area, which you can't just get out and walk through that water. That might be the last time you do so. We had to jump on a small turboprop plane in Cairns, and then we took off from Cairns to the Cape York area. And we stayed Greenhouse, which is really cool, kind of shipping container property with a bunch of different rooms. And, for it being remote, those were really nice places. It was really good AC, warm shower water. Seski, Ryan's girlfriend, cooked us elaborate, amazing food every single day. So we didn't have to worry about going to restaurants. I don't even know if there was any restaurants to be had there. It says outback Australia feeling as you can get.
Yeah, the Cape York is like the wild frontier in Australia. You've got the proper outback desert, which is frontier as well. But Cape York, when you're in Cape York, you feel like you're in an island. Yeah, because obviously a peninsula, you're surrounded by 3 parts of water, right, or either side of water. So you feel like you're very much on an island, stuck there. Mm-hmm. When we went was towards the end of the rainy season, but as we know now, like stuff is shifting, and so they were getting a lot more rain than anticipated. So essentially when we got there, there was still so much rain that the roads were flooded. So we only could get there by plane. Yep. And man, as soon as we get there, you feel that humidity. For me, my heart is in the tropics, and this is tropics. You feel alive, when we got there. And the first night that we go out, target achieved. We find scrub python, which is Australia's one of Australia's largest snake species is the scrub python. They get like 18 feet. And we find the green tree python. And that trip, what comes to mind that trip is green tree pythons, right? Like 26 of them that we spotted throughout the several days we were there. Seski's food was amazing. And chill vibes. I don't know what else to explain it, but just chill. Yeah. It was just new for us. Every other location that we went on this trip, we had been and done for Animal Planet. So we were at the same places, same streets, same restaurants. So it kind of just felt like going out in your own city a little bit. And that's why we also wanted to do Cape York, is to explore a new area and see new things and see new animals. Like that just gets us more excited, and that will translate on to camera as well. Yeah, because we're in the unknown. And we made new friends there. And Ryan's nearly done with his eco lodge. Sure. That we were seeing the very beginning stages of them just laying out dirt. So we're ready to go back to Cape York, and there was so much more to explore. We were only in a little sliver, and the peninsula is huge. Like we didn't go all the way around the peninsula, and so many species there too. We did not get to see a cassowary, which is native there. As soon as we got there, I always say this, not to a lot of places, but I was like, yeah, I could retire here. Yeah. It's like if I could live in this little room that we're staying at in Greenhouse, like that's it. I've got AC, food, animals, done. So fantastic place that we want to certainly visit again.
Yep.
The green tree pythons, super cool in that I distinctly, when I was younger, green tree pythons were like the holy grail. When I would go into a pet shop and there would be one for sale and I would see it, I'd be like, wow, I will never be able to have a green tree python, let alone see one of these in the wild. Like it was just like the holy grail for me. And, in 2009, I actually bred green tree pythons in captivity. So my buddy and I, Mike, we got a captive pair of green tree pythons, captive bred pair. And they're not the easiest snakes to breed, but I successfully kept them at my place and they bred. They laid eggs, or the female laid eggs, and I successfully incubated them and got 19 hatched green tree pythons. So green tree pythons are dear to my heart because then it's like, all right, cool. Next step, I want to see them in the wild. And the Cape York has a specific species of green tree python because they also range into Papua New Guinea, which is not far.
No, yeah.
Right?
Just
not
off
far.
the coast.
PNG, as they call it. So that was my favorite part. I mean, these green tree pythons, they perch on trees during the day. They're sleeping. And then at night, you just cruise around with a flashlight and they're just in ambush position, like these perfect poses, just waiting for a mouse or something to pass by. And then they launch out and grab it. The juveniles, beautiful, yellow in color. So we saw some juveniles as well, which we got very lucky to see. But I can't get over the green tree pythons.
Yeah. I mean, actually, let me see here.
I know what you're going to show.
Yeah, we'll show. I've got the super tight shot of the green tree python there.
The eye.
Yeah, the eye. That was, took quite a few shots to get, but I had just gotten that lens, that ultra macro. And when you're up close to these things and you see the eyes, like the eyes are just so cool. I mean, it's like a planet.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to get as close of a shot. And because they're not venomous, you can get close and they're pretty docile. We never had any of them strike at us or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I carry that photo with me every day. So they're pretty near and dear to me as well.
Yeah. True gems of the rainforest,
Yep.
works of natural works of art,
Yep.
So Cape York, fantastic. Now, the Cape York makes you work for stuff, right? Meaning there was days that we would be cruising to an area and then pass through a little creek. On the way back, that creek was flooded and we'd have to wait 2 hours for it to subside.
Yeah.
And then finally, because of weather, our main flights out of Cape York were canceled. And we had to charter a small plane back to Cairns to get out of there to go back to the US.
Yeah.
So we were at the point of we might miss our international flights out of here, which for me, I was like, yeah, cool. I'll just stay here.
Which is why in pre-production, it is so important on a trip of this magnitude to have buffer days, because that buffer day saved us and that allowed us to still make it on that flight. Had we been flying out and then immediately going on to that international flight, we'd have been screwed and we would have had to do, we only had Starlink in Cape York. So we had to go to Ryan's house in order to use Starlink. We were already checking, can we move these Delta flights? We were back and forth with Bo and Suzanne at the office to be like, here's our situation. We're pretty remote and we're going to jump on this small little tiny plane. And I remember when that plane showed up, the weather was fairly nice in where we were in Cape York, but not so much in Cairns. Very bad rain and storms. And, it's like we had all this gear. We had to leave gear behind because we were overweight. She said very specifically we needed to meet this weight. We're going to have to leave almost an entire bag of gear. So we were picking and choosing of what is the non-essential, non-expensive things that we can leave behind. And yeah, we're at capacity on that plane. I see I look at the plane. I'm like, how is all this going to fit on that plane? She starts opening up compartments, sticking things in, whatever. And you two were in the back with a bunch of luggage in between us. And
my feet were on luggage.
Yeah. And I sat, it was a Piper Cherokee. I'm not sure the model numbers. It's a single prop front engine plane. And I was sitting up front with her and it's all manual. I just do moving levers and twisting knobs. And I'm paying a lot of attention to everything she's touching, how she's moving the rudder, how she's, using the wheel. Cause I'm like, there's no co-pilot. I am the co-pilot. I'm like, if for whatever reason she goes down, I I'm going to be the only person up here to take control of the plane. So I had my first flight lesson, and it's pretty crazy to just sit and watch like levers and maneuvers being pulled. Like there's no digital screen at all. It's just all these little gauges she's watching. And we did have to maneuver around some weather, so it took a little bit longer than expected, but we made it to our flight and made it back to Los Angeles.
It was a bumpy flight at first, and it took a lot longer than we anticipated. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But man, she was fantastic pilot and got us to the ground safely. Yeah. And another story to add to the books.
Well, and it didn't even really end there because it started with we flew from Cape York, and then we had like maybe 2 hours before we had to get on the plane to LA. We get to LA.
Oh, no. Remember, we went to
Sydney.
Cape York. We have our buffer day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And we went.
I have to emphasize what you said earlier. A good producer has buffer days.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And that has saved us countless times. Yep. Like, even if that buffer day turns out to be worst case, just simply, best case, just your day off, right?
Yep.
That's our day off to chill before we jump on a big international trip or a significant flight.
Right.
Yeah, have to have the buffer days.
Well, what I was going to say is that when we had gone to Sydney and we had, I think, 2 days there, on our return from Sydney to LA, we get to LA, and the plane needed some tape or something to get to ATL because we went from LA to ATL and then back to CMH. And we are waiting and we're exhausted. We've just crossed the ocean, and we're gonna be delayed by 2 or 3 hours. We're missing it. We're gonna get to ATL. We are missing that flight home. So we are 1 hour flight away. We have come from the other side of the world, and we didn't make our flight in ATL, and we are zapped.
Good.
And we're like, all right, now we got to get on a freaking train and stay in ATL, wake up early in the morning, go through the entire ATL security for a 1 hour flight. We are maybe a 10-hour drive or less from our home, and we've come across the other side of the world. And ATL has done this several times to us.
Yeah.
Delta has done this several times to us. So hopefully it wasn't the last because I had 2 other incidents after that, but it's just airlines. If you travel a lot, you're going to run into something sometime.
And, I got very frustrated. The last incident, almost missed a flight. That was just
by a hair.
Yeah. But, got to take it as it goes and have those buffer times and points implemented so that it saves you for your production. And that's it. That was Australia 2023.
Yeah.
Despite us being there for so long, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, 100%.
There are so many species we still have not featured. Like, we haven't really gone back to the proper outback. We haven't been to the west.
South or west. Yeah.
South or west.
Yeah.
So Max, Lockie, all our Aussie friends, think of some really cool concepts for us to film so we could get back to Australia.
Yep.
And now we are left with our quick takes. Let's start with you, Trent. Favorite Aussie animal?
That's a given. The GTP lives on my phone every day, green tree python.
All right. Favorite location for this past trip?
Chili Beach. We didn't talk about it much, but Chili Beach is in Cape York, and I found 2 nautilus shells nearly in perfect condition back to back, and we'd only gotten 1 or 2 days to explore. It's super remote. Nobody's on the beach, and you can just walk down and find all kinds of things that have washed up, and it's just unique. It's unlike any beach I'd ever been to before. And there's saltwater crocodiles out in the water. So,
and we did find a dugout canoe.
We did, which is another big find there.
Yeah, another story in itself. But currently it lives at Ryan's new lodge, so you could see it there. Yep. Most rewarding moment?
Surviving the food poisoning and making it through that day of the Crocs.
Fair enough.
That was, just felt like a soldier in the field, and had to get through it.
Fair enough. Most frustrating moment, I think.
It's going to be the food poisoning. There was a lot of frustration in that moment. It was it just puts you down. Not great.
All right. Overall food and accommodations rating for the entire trip.
We talked about this a little before our shoot here, and it's tough for me because some places are 5, some places are 2.
Some places give you food poisoning.
Some places give me food poisoning. But I would say overall 4. If you were to average it out.
Okay.
I think the one thing that they do really well is brekkie. Brekkie
Yeah.
and flat whites. I'm all about that. I don't eat breakfast much when I'm at home. If I do, it's very simple.
Are
Yogurt.
you sure about that?
I'm sure about that. I
Because
know.
all you're talking about is breakfast.
But only on trips. Only on trips is when I go hard on breakfast, and especially in Australia, because the brekkie is just unlike any other. The sourdough, the eggs, and they do like the tomatoes, like the roasted tomatoes. Like, I mean, I wish that was somewhere here in Columbus, but yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 on average.
Okay, cool.
All right, your takes.
Yep.
Favorite Aussie animal?
This is hard to pinpoint, but I'm gonna say the frill lizard. And
Good one.
me saying frill lizard reminds me that I didn't even include this. When we were in Darwin, we did an entire frill lizard episode that got us hooked on Pokemon.
Yes. Bad.
If it wasn't for this episode, we would have saved a lot of money.
A lot of money, a lot of time. Yeah, yes, for sure.
I forgot to mention that this Australia trip got us hooked on Pokemon
Which
cards.
we only recently in the last couple months broke the addiction.
I mean, we are going to Japan, and I'm thinking about Pokemon
yeah, we'll do
cards.
a little re-up.
Okay, sorry. Frill lizards.
Yep.
One of a kind. I mean, I love green tree pythons, but the frillies, they are so fun.
Yep. Excellent. Favorite location?
Cape York, easy.
Yep. Most rewarding moment?
Finding the green tree pythons for the first time. Yeah, seeing that just, at night, when you shine that light, they just stick out like a neon sign,
Yeah,
like
yep.
green neon. It's hard to explain. You would think green on green would camouflage, but at night, they just pop out.
It's a very distinct green.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then you've got
beautiful.
the juveniles that are bright yellow. So those stick out even more and are, I think, even a little bit color or a little bit better coloration too.
Yeah.
Most frustrating moment?
For sure, the most frustrating moment was chipping that Sony lens.
Yeah.
That I was so pissed at myself for several days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, at least it wasn't the entire glass shattering.
At least it wasn't the camera, which I did rent.
Yeah, but you got protection on that.
Yeah, I did.
So you would have been good there. Yeah.
I did.
Yep. Food and accommodations rating.
I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. Australia is chill vibes. The people there, I don't know how to explain it, but they're chill.
Yeah.
The location, Australia feels like it's stuck in the 90s, but in a good way.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. The architecture, the way they dress, the mullets that a lot of the guys like to wear.
Yeah. Max and Lockie had mentioned that Australia seems to be like maybe 2 to 3 years behind trends of America. And like it just, those things happen here in America and they take some time to get going over there. And that's why it felt like we were moving back in time a little bit. But,
yeah. Australia, they do their thing. They're kind of quiet. They're hanging out.
Yep.
So highly
Good vibes.
recommend to check out. All right. That's it for studio sessions.
Yeah, that was a lot. It was a lot to put in. I mean, there could be more to talk about. There's the previous trip that has its whole set of good times and moments.
Boy.
But yeah, I mean, Australia, near and dear to us, definitely going to make it back. Max and Lockie, I'm sure, will have an adventure for us planned here in the future.
Well, we're going to see them blokes soon. This is our fifth studio
one,
session,
yeah.
right? I guess let's ask the audience, in the comments below, are you liking these studio sessions? Anything in particular that you want us to touch upon more based on productions or more of our takes? Global Guardians is going. We're near 6,000 subscribers.
Yeah, moving along. We got some awesome episodes in the can that are coming out later in the year. So stick around. Make sure to like and subscribe again. Leave some comments, like Mario was saying. Let us know what you like, what you would like to hear, so you can stay up to date on everything coming in the future from Global Guardians.